Lori Kay is a nurse at Detroit's Mercy Hospital. And as the months of COVID progressed, she was in a ward that was a surgical ward. But over time, the whole of the hospital at Detroit Mercy became a COVID ward, and hers as well. And it was a very arduous time. This was the time in particular in which the health and medical community across our country exercised such heroic sacrifice and devotion to help save lives and help maintain health. And in her ward, like everywhere else in the hospital, there was a sadness that dawned upon them because they weren't able to be home with their families to the degree they wanted to be, and they were surrounded by so much suffering. And the supervisor at the hospital came to Lori one day and said this, "Lori, you have a beautiful singing voice. I would ask you at each shift change to come and sing a song each day to lift the spirits of our staff and to bring them a moment of joy in their lives each day here at the hospital." And so Lori did. And the first day, as the staff was gathered, half of them were coming on and half of them were going off. She gathered with them in the hallway and sang Amazing Grace. And she does have a beautiful voice. And people took, videos of it on their phones. And you could see how everyone was lifted by it. It called them for a moment to focus on the blessings around them, even amidst all this hardship. And she did it every day, different song, usually a spiritual song, to sing to the staff of the hospital and to bring them joy. And in fact, her singing went viral, and as a result, at the COVID ceremony in Washington for those who had died, when it reached the 500,000 mark, she was asked to sing Amazing Grace and did so beautifully. And when her supervisor, the one who had initiated this, was interviewed for the paper, for the media, the supervisor said this: "Joy had been in hiding in our hospital in those months. And in a real sense, joy has been hiding in our world." And Lori was able to bring it out, just for a moment, but to bring it out in a critically important way. Now, you received today the sacrament of confirmation, the gift of the Holy Spirit. And today's second reading says, that the gift of the Holy Spirit, the coming of the Spirit, is the down payment of our redemption, is the phrase, all right? Because it brings gifts with it. Now, there are two types of gifts of the Holy Spirit. One is the one you've probably memorized and read along the way, wisdom, understanding, counsel, and so forth, the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. But St. Paul talks about another concept, which are the fruits of the Holy Spirit in Catholic teaching. The fruits of the Holy Spirit are exactly what this second reading speaks of: the down payment on our redemption. Because the fruits of the Holy Spirit are what God's action produces in our lives for ourselves. And the most important one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit is joy. It's joy. When the apostles see Jesus risen, they're filled with joy. On the day of Pentecost, when they're gathered in the upper room, they're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. Jesus is gone, and they're distressed. And then the Spirit comes. They're filled with a joy that never leaves them for the rest of their lives. Christian joy is simply the ability to find in the world all around us the blessings that God leaves there every day, but most of the time we simply go and pass by and take for granted. Joy pauses and savors the fact that in our everyday lives there are blessings from God that are awesome and wonderful. Blessings of family and friendship, the beauty of the world that surrounds us, relationships we have with others, acts of forgiveness and mercy. The blessing of God, the presence of God is all around us. And joy is taking the time to focus upon that for a minute and to see God at work and to understand the giftedness that confronts us in those moments when we see God's blessing. Now, I would ask each of you who are receiving confirmation in this particular year to try to become what Laurie Keyes was, an agent or a missionary of joy, to try to take opportunities in the coming months, particularly, to bring joy to the lives of others and to savor joy in your own life, to recognize God's blessings, pause on it, give thanks, and share it. That's what Christian joy is. But I'd ask not just those who are being confirmed, but all of you gathered here today to try to make these months, as we come out of this pandemic, and there's so many signs of hope around us, and the world emerges once again on so many levels. Make this a time in which each of you savors joy especially, and makes the effort to find joy in your daily life and savor it, reflect upon it, drink it in, and know that God stands with us. And the gift of the resurrection, the down payment of the resurrection, the gift of the Holy Spirit, calls us unceasingly to be a people of joy.